The third time wasn't the charm, and neither was the fourth. Israel, which has held 4 elections in the past 2 years, is again stuck in political deadlock. The March 23rd vote did not produce a clear winner. Like the previous elections, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party and his far-right allies grabbed the most seats, but came short of forming a majority. And it's not clear which party he'll have to court to form a coalition government. A few parties have emerged as possible kingmakers, with the Arab Party of Ram and its 4 seats being a surprising possibility. Netanyahu's success with the vaccination rollout and his diplomatic victories in securing Israel's recognition from 4 Arab states wasn't enough for a total victory. But after 12 years in power and numerous corruption scandals, Netanyahu's rivals also weren't able to unseat Israel's longest-serving prime minister. And a lot is at stake in this deeply divided nation, as the Palestinian territories are set to hold their own elections later this year. So, is a 5th vote in 2 years a possibility for Israel? And to answer that, joining me from Tel Aviv is Gideon Levy, who is a columnist at Haaretz newspaper, and from Amman, Daoud Kuttab. He is a Middle East analyst. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you on the program. Gideon, what's your take on the election results? And can we finally say that it has been confirmed that Israel is facing yet another deadlock?
No doubt, and it's quite expected, as long as Benjamin Netanyahu will be in the picture will show a deadlock, because we have 2 camps in Israel, one for Netanyahu, the other one against him, nothing to do with ideology, nothing to do with left and right, and they are more or less equal in their power, and there is no room for compromise between the 2 camps.
So what's next moving forward? Is it headed to a 5th election now?
That's the most probable possibility, but there is still a possibility that some of the parties or some of the members, we are facing a parliament with 13 parties. If one party will change its position, we'll have a government either with Netanyahu or without him. Right now, it doesn't seem very probable, but who knows?
So, Daoud, Netanyahu's party is the largest in parliament, but now has fewer seats. What is about Netanyahu? He seems to be so divisive, but at the same time, very popular among some Israelis.
Well, I think that what is happening is that for the first time, the Palestinian citizens of Israel are having a say, and they are having an effect as the decider in between the different Israeli Zionist parties. I don't know where it will end, but I don't think it looks very good for Netanyahu on the long term. I think he's in a very difficult situation.
So, Gideon, who'll save the country from this political impasse? And why do you think a general voter turnout was down this time?
Because people lost faith in politics, because people lost interest in politics, because they see that it repeats itself again and again, and it creates a deadlock. But you must understand that it's very hard to mobilize people right now, because those who support Netanyahu will support him in fire and in water unconditionally. And those who are against him see him as the Satan and will do anything possible to remove him. So when the 2 camps are so clear and so devoted to pro and against, it's very hard to find a path in between.
So, Daoud, what kind of a role could Arab Israeli parties play in untangling this knot? And would they be willing to help Netanyahu to form a government?
Yeah, I think that Netanyahu's career is about to be over. I think whether he stays in government or not, I don't think he can create the law that would allow him to skip the criminal trial that he has. I think the best thing for the Israelis is to can find a way to create a short-term government that can basically get him out of the prime minister's office, and therefore he would be susceptible to trial. And then maybe after that, I think the next election has to be without Netanyahu. That's the only way really to get out of this. And I think the key issue is going to be who will be the Speaker of the Knesset. I think if the Speaker of the Knesset is not from Netanyahu's people, I think that would be a good sign of where things might go to stop Netanyahu's train wreck.
So, Gideon, could the Arab list or Rama be a kingmaker? And how has even the possibility of this party having a deciding role in the formation of the next government resonated in Israel?
It's really miraculous, but I wouldn't count on this. Right now, he may become a kingmaker, but it will be a very, very short fame, short term. And I'm very afraid that immediately after, there will be many promises being made. And maybe my friend Daoud can tell us more about what the Jews are ready right now to promise to the Palestinians, to the Israeli Palestinians, but by the end of the day, after there will be a government created, we'll get back to the same nationalistic and many times racist attitude toward the Israeli Palestinians. And I don't think that major changes will take place in the short run. For the long run,
yes.
For the long run, maybe it's the beginning of a game changer, maybe.
So, Daoud, will this surprising success of Ram encourage more Arabs to engage in politics in future?
You know, I think the Palestinian citizens of Israel have been disappointed so many times. They had put a lot of hope in guns and nothing happened. I think as long as there is no clear Israeli Zionist party that has a strong position opposing the occupation, I think there will be always a problem with Palestinian citizens of Israel voting for Israeli parties and voting at all, because right now the number of people who voted this time went down from the last time because people are sick and tired of elections and sick and tired of promises of politicians. And I think, yes, the fact that a small Arab party might be the kingmaker is bringing back some hope. But I think in the end, the key issue is the occupation. And unless there is an Israeli party that is strongly, like Gideon Levy, against the occupation, we will always have a problem.
Yeah, so Gideon, how do political party leaders explain this situation to their voters and why the opposition is so fragmented and what's before their unification against Netanyahu?
Because the division lines changed in Israel politics. If before it was left and right or pro-occupation and against occupation, right now there's only one issue at stake, namely Netanyahu, yes or not. And this crosses any other political lines or ideological lines. But by the end of the day, we should remember very well that the clear majority, also in those elections, the clear majority is for the right-wingers. It's over 70 members of the parliament are declared hardcore right-wingers, and this is not going to change in the coming future. And this should worry us much more than if Netanyahu stays in power or not.
So, Daoud, amid this uncertainty, Palestinians may soon be heading to the polls for the first time in 15 years. Do you believe it will be possible under these circumstances?
Yeah, you know, we have elections for the Legislative Council due on May 22nd, and that is 14 years after the last election. It's a big problem, and, you know, I think elections will give legitimacy to whoever is in power after the election. But our problem is that we have an occupation that has lasted way too long, and elections without the end of occupation is not really an important thing. I mean, yes, it's important maybe to end the division between Gaza and the West Bank, hopefully, and put some life into the, give legitimacy to the Palestinian negotiators. But in reality, you cannot really have democracy in elections while there's still occupation. It just doesn't work that way.
But on the other hand, Gideon, do you believe that Hamas and Fatah are now committed to a real political process?
I think Hamas is planning to nominate some of its top leaders in the elections, but then I think they will not nominate, if there is a coalition government, which the new law allows for a coalition government, I think there will be people that Hamas will nominate to the government that are not card-holding members of Hamas. I think What Hamas cannot do is have the same problems of 2006 again, and they don't want to contest the presidency anymore, and I think they don't want to control the government anymore. They just want to have, their legitimacy renewed, and I think the bigger question will be after the elections, how the national unity will end or will not end Hamas's rule. Will it give Hamas more power in the West Bank? What will happen to the people who control the rockets in Gaza? There are a lot of questions to be answered.
So, Gideon, how do you think the US and the EU would position themselves during and after the elections if they were to be held? Would they recognize or not recognize Hamas again?
I don't think it's of a major significance, because in the recent years, the role of the United States and of the EU minimized. They lost interest. They stopped interfering. They give some lip service, but nothing more but lip service. And, with all if they will recognize or not, if they will condemn Israel for another settlement or not, by the end of the day, without taking real measures, as the EU knows to do and as the United States knows to do, without their taking practical measures to put an end to the occupation, nothing will change.
But maybe with the Biden administration now in power, we'll see a more unified European Union in action. Gentlemen, unfortunately, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining us on Straight Talk.